When you think of rappers that often find themselves feuding with other rappers, there's a few names in particular that probably come to mind, I'm sure. One of those being Jersey's own Joe Budden, and another being 50 Cent. Not only did these two have a rap beef at one point, but they also entered the industry around the same time. Both of them released their debut albums in 2003, Joe with his self-titled album, and 50 with the classic Get Rich or Die Tryin'. 50 was well known at this point for his highly publicized beef with Ja Rule, which wound up getting other people involved like Jadakiss and Fat Joe, and anyone else who worked with Ja. The beef with Joe is probably one of his few rap beefs around this time that actually wasn't related to his Murder Inc. beef. Joe is known for his controversial takes and for ruffling feathers with punchlines at times. Check out my video on his beef with Saigon for a great example. 50 Cent appears to be the one that started things off in this situation though, as in 2003 he was featured as a guest editor for an edition of a XXL magazine, and on one of the magazine segments he mentioned a Joe Budden line from his single Focus. The line in question being, "We pump diesel, I ain't talking about jeans or sneakers," basically calling the line whack. Joe responded to 50 on a DJ Clue mixtape with the lines, "Rearrange jeans and features, pump diesel, I ain't talking about jeans or sneakers, think about it, you see, you rap dudes wanna hassle me, might have to treat this barrel like a spree well, you jump, I box out, what good is your bulletproof truck when you gotta hop out?" That being a reference to G-Unit rolling around in bulletproof vehicles. Another one of the first shots thrown on wax was with another freestyle Joe Budden had. He has the lines, "In jurors where they tuck heat and love shanks, and we keep money under the mattress, fuck banks. Niggas wanna act ape like a razor to both sides of the jaw when they give them a sad face." The double entendre for Banks and Lloyd Banks from G-Unit would seem to be a pretty subtle jab, but when paired with a reference to apes and the group he was in, G-Unit, in which the G is for gorilla, it would seem quite clear that Joe knew just what he was doing with these lines. Then towards the end of the verse, Joe has the lines, "If Game is a certified gangster, who be giving out certificates, illegitimate, y'all niggas believe in him, he's yesterday paper, guess nobody reading him." In 2004, Jim Jones released his solo debut single, Certified Gangsters, which features Game on the remix. I've had a hard time finding when this freestyle was, but based on those lines, it would seem to have been released sometime after the Certified Gangsters track, which would mean sometime in 2004 at the earliest, if that line was indeed a shot at Game. Lloyd Banks and Young Buck from G-Unit had an interview, and they spoke on their beef with Joe. Banks referred to Joe Budden as Pink Budden, and basically chalked the beef up to a case of, if it don't apply, let it fly. Basically, Banks said that Joe was replying to things that they said that had nothing to do with him. Like for example, 50 saying he's the king of New York. Whoever feels that they are is going to feel dissed.
As far as Pink Buttons, he's
Pink Buttons.
He's trying to take your job, man.
Wow.
He done gave it up. He threw it in the ropes.
Wow, man. Well, you know. Everybody's coming at Joe
But that's old folks.
Whoa. Well, you know.
They taking shots at us.
What you say?
They shooting blanks.
Yo, where did that come from? Like, how did that even get started?
That came from imaginary disses. You know, when you're number one, whoever your contender feels, or whoever feels they your contender, feels the number one, they're gonna feel like you're talking about them. Yeah. To the point where, if 50 says, "I'm the king of New York," whoever feels like they're the king of New York also is gonna feel like that was a diss, a subliminal diss.
Yeah.
When I say something like, "I'm number one on the mixtape," you don't apply. You're like, you're not even in the rankings, so why would you feel like I was dissing you or feel like 50 was dissing you? Like, you're the last thing on our mind.
I get what he's trying to say. In 2003, G-Unit released the mixtape No Peace Talks, G-Unit Radio Part 4, which features the track Motherfucking Star by Lloyd Banks. On this track, Banks uses the beat from the Tupac track Runnin' featuring Biggie from the Tupac Resurrection soundtrack album. On the song, Banks has the lines, "And it ain't hard to tell you flopped on your last tune, cause your dressing room is the size of my bathroom. If I'm at the dealer, I ain't browsing, I'm buying. These rappers can't spend 100,000, they lying. Damn near sold 100,000, you crying. I tell you what, here's a tech, shoot yourself in the neck." Of course, at this time, the biggest beef they were in was against Ja Rule and Murder Inc., so you could say that this was also a diss to Ja Rule. But when you look at the lines about selling damn near 100,000 albums, and you look at what Joe Budden sold in his first week with his debut album, which released that same year, it would seem to be a pretty clear jab to Joe, as apparently his album sold 95,000 copies the first week, just short of 100,000. Around this time, Joe Budden released the first of his mood music series of mixtapes, Mood Music 1, The Worst of Joe Budden. On that mixtape, he has the track Bitch Rappers and Metaphors, which, as you could tell by the title, is a diss to rappers with some whack metaphors. Who was one of the rappers who was known for their wordplay at this time and Joe just happened to be beefing with? Yeah, you got it, Banks. On the second verse of the track, Joe has the lines, "I love when black youths do they number and all make hits to make them little kids run to the store, but it's like rappers ain't got no hunger at all." This would be a reference to Lloyd Banks' debut album Hunger for More, which released in June 2004. Then on the outro of the track, Joe makes a reference to a line from the Lloyd Banks single I'm So Fly, where he mentioned being cooler than the other side of the pillow. Some sources state that the mixtape was released in 2003 and some say 2004, but based on the references that were made, I'm going with 2004. The timeline for some of these older mixtapes isn't always accurate, but the point is that he dissed Lloyd Banks on this track as well. Things got even more heated when at the 2004 Summer Jam in NYC, 50 Cent did the Grammy Awards, which was a mock version of the Grammy Awards show, and he said the nominees for the wackest rappers are Ja Rule, Joe Budden, and Black Child from Murder Inc., and it was a three-way tie between them. Also in 2004, the DJ Clue track Cross Country Connection was released, which features stacked bundles Joe Budden and Game. At this time, Game was a member of G-Unit, and on Joe's verse, he had the lines, "Gangsters do real things because gangsters have to. I should have a real gangster whack ya, bang and clap ya, punk aiming at ya. He should be in the G-Unit vid with all the gangster actors." This was seen as a reference to the G-Unit video Poppin' Them Things from their debut album Beg for Mercy, released in November 2003. According to Game, he received a call from 50 Cent asking him if he did a song with Joe Budden, to which Game said no. 50 told him that on a DJ Clue mixtape, there's a song with verses from them both. So apparently, to make matters worse, Clue put Joe on the song without telling Game. After this, Game was now officially beefing with Joe as well. Game released the diss track Buttons, which interpolates the chorus and instrumental from the classic Ice-T track Colors from the soundtrack of the film of the same name. In the intro, he states quite clearly that he's only going to have one diss track to Joe, and then he's going to resort to knocking him out. Knowing Game, do you really think he left it at one diss track though? We'll get to that a little later. In the first verse, Game references the whole situation with a DJ Clue song with the lines, "I'm gangbanging, wearing G6s, call them how I see them, these niggas is bitches," and Clue put this nigga on a song and now it's G-Unit, and I came to get it on. You ain't hot nigga, you lukewarm. I'll hog tie your ass with G-Unit shoes on. Of course, you know at this point, G-Unit was selling clothes and sneakers too, so leave it to Game to mention G-Unit shoes, even in a diss track. He then mentions what happened when they met in person with the lines, talking about you got ratchets and tools on. When you was at the All-Star game with no jewels on, I can't believe I gave you that. With the 4-5 on me, I should have gave you that. Pistol whip, you laid you flat. Game in the second verse, this is Joe with the lines, "You fake like Janet's titty. One call, 300 bloods in Atlantic City. You bad boyed and dance like Diddy. I give celebrity beatdowns, I bring the camera with me. On that mixtape shit, you knew my man was 50. And I keep something chrome in them tannish dickies." The line about Janet is a reference to the Janet Jackson incident at the Super Bowl in 2004 when she was with Justin Timberlake and one of her breasts was accidentally exposed. Some say that it was fake, and this seems to be a reference to that. Either that or Game was literally calling Janet Jackson's breast fake, which isn't cool either. The Atlantic City line is of course a reference to the fact that Joe is from New Jersey. It's an okay track, it is a classic beat, but Game sticks to his threats of physical violence and not much else. Joe responds with the aptly named Game Over. Joe isn't the only one that would go with the obvious Game Over title when dissing the game, actually. If you haven't seen my video on Game vs. Razkaz, check that one out for more details. On Game Over, Joe uses the beat from the classic DLC track, Funky Enough, from his debut album No One Can Do It Better, released in 1989. More specifically, he uses the beat from the Shine song, That's Gangsta, from his self-titled debut album released in September 2000, and that song sample is funky enough. Joe on the intro of the track has some choice words for Game, like telling him that he's only a replacement until Yayo gets out of prison, and compares G-Unit to the group The Five Heartbeats from the 1991 film because of the singing that 50 would do on songs. He starts the verse off with the lines, "Dude wanna be Dre, Ren, Ice Cube, or Easy, but you ain't them, dude believe me, your sounds type trash, tell Banks to ghostwrite, but then you sound like Fab." Which of course is a reference to the NWA members that Game talks about regularly in his music, and then a reference to Banks' ghostwriting and how some people think that he sounds like Fabulous. He continues on with the lines, "Let's do the math, you ain't sold shit and I sold 500k more than that. Heard your diss track but I ain't even play all that because I just seen dude, he ain't say all that, was in the same hotel. If dude wanted to do me, I'd have been Cassidy and gave him the room key." Which is a direct response to Game's lines about Joe's sales and seeing him in public as well and nothing happening. The Cassidy mention is a reference to his hit single Hotel featuring R. Kelly, released in 2003. Joe finishes his verse with the lines, "You need help, is Dre gonna put him on the shelf? Better learn from Rakim, so when I see you asshole, we can let the Glocks blow. Come through Jersey or I meet you at Roscoe's. Another fake thug gets killed, 100 red dots on you if you wanna be a blood for real." The Rakim line is a reference to the fact that Rakim signed to Dre's Aftermath label and his album was shelved. Joe channeled his inner Tupac on the outro as he goes off on all the G-Unit and talks about their singing and how 50 should diss Joe himself instead of having his pawns do it. Game also disses Joe on the track The Breakdown 200 Bars and Running from the mixtape You Know What It Is Volume 2, Throwing Rocks at the Throne, released in 2004, and on the track he uses the beat from the Dr. Dre single Deep Cover. As the title states, Game rapped over 200 bars. How many exactly? I don't know. Game calls Joe a snitch with the lines, "They trying to take me downtown, put me under the court, cause Joe Budden's told him I carry a gun in New York, and homie that's strictly fact, he got ripped on wax, so he snitched just to get me back." I'm not exactly sure where the Joe snitching thing comes from, either a line from Joe or just Game making an accusation to diss Joe's character. He follows up with the lines, "No matter what you say dog, your shit be whack, you better watch what you say, it might get you clapped. Here's a little advice homie, switch your raps, cause that shit in your last album ain't get you plaques." Which is a shot at Joe for his debut album at the time not going gold or platinum yet. Game goes on throughout the track to send shots at others as well, like Bang 'em Smurf, a former associate of 50 Cent, who at this point was also beefing with 50. Game also made a reference to Joe on a freestyle to the Biggie song Unbelievable, which is also from the same mixtape. On the second verse, he again disses Bang 'em Smurf, and he ends the verse with the lines, "You better ask Joe Buddens if I hold my gun. I got 99 problems and a Smurf ain't one." Once again making a reference to Joe Budden mentioning that Game has a gun. Once again, the Game had a lot of threats and whatnot, but not too much outside of that it seems. Joe dissed G-Unit again on the track Big Shot. On the first verse, he claims 50 uses steroids and says he's not as tough as he says he is in his rhymes, as well as mentioning the original 50 Cent, who 50 got his rap name from, with the lines, yeah, it's your boy, listen to him. I think maybe the steroids is finally getting to him. Or maybe it's people believing all the hard raps. Or maybe it's a tank top with the bra straps. Maybe he's really believing he's a heathen, like dude he stole his name from. Dude ain't the same none. Nothing's hard body about him. He's like pudding. For those that don't know, 50 Cent got his name from Brooklyn stick-up kid Kelvin Martin, aka 50 Cent. He goes on to diss 50 for going to boot camp instead of doing his jail time when he got arrested for drugs back in the 90s, and claims that Yayo stayed in PC or protective custody when he was in jail with the lines, "I get you off for a clip, no friends involved," or we could take it one further, get Queens involved, where they know he went to jail, never over a banger, he went to boot camp, not in pop with the gangsters, sorta like Yayo, he stayed in PC. He finishes the first verse with the lines, "Punched Banks in the face and he's still with him. Don't worry about me putting clips in the 40 to pistol whip Lloyd when 50 will do it for me." Which I'm not sure is true or just a claim Joe made to make them look bad as a group. He also made a reference to 50 punching Lloyd Banks as well as punching DJ Who Kid in an interview he had around this time, so hey, who knows.
Who Kid? Same dude let 50 Cent punch his mouth off and body slam him all around the Summer Jam stage.
Budden, tell me something now.
What Who Kid is putting on. Man, if I man, listen.
50 Cent punched Who Kid in the face?
Come on, I didn't say that.
Yes, you did just say that. Said he punched him and he body slammed him like Hulk Hogan at WWE Raw.
Who Kid? You ever say something to me about a Who Kid again in life? Who Kid? So anyway, man.
So listen, 50 Cent smacked Who Kid.
You gotta give it to 50. He's gangster though. He just run around punching dudes in their face. I ain't gonna punch Who Kid in the face.
If 50
punch poor little Lloyd Banks all in the face.
He punched Lloyd?
Damn it.
In the second verse, he switches targets to the game. He starts the verse off with the lines, "Far as the kid game, he's lame to say the least. Mad he from the west, so he diverted to the east. All he talk about, him and his mans are the blast pounds, but when you see him, he just dancing in the background." Essentially dissing Game for being a West Coast rapper, but joining a group from the East Coast, and for being in the background of all the G-Unit videos, but not really having any of his own. If you remember back around 2003, Game was featured in G-Unit videos. For example, he was seen briefly in 50 Cent's video for the hit single In the Club. Sometime in 2004, G-Unit released the mixtape G-Unit Radio, The Fifth Element, which features Steve O speaking at various points, and on an interlude, he disses Joe Budden. Ironically enough, Game wound up being kicked out of G-Unit early in 2005, and he would then turn his attention to dissing his former group mates above anyone else. All that dissing he did to artists like Ja Rule and Joe Budden to show his loyalty for this to be the outcome is wild. The beef between Joe and G-Unit continued, however. Lloyd Banks would dish Joe Budden on the track We're Back with Young Buck. On Banks' verse, he has the lines, "That's why I'm on a level you need to step your rap game up to. I live on the road, but for the pay I'ma roll out. Besides, my hotel room is bigger than your whole house. Fuck the game, don't let the rap game fuck you. They shelf ya, won't nobody hear your shit but you. I help ya for a good price if you could swallow your pride, cause you're not ready, you're hood nice." That is a reference to the Step Your Game Up segment from XXL magazine that 50 mentioned Joe Budden in, and the fact that Joe's second album due to release on Def Jam was shelved. In 2004, he released singles from his then upcoming album The Growth, but it wound up being shelved indefinitely. Joe took shots at Game again on a freestyle to the hit single by Fabulous, Breathe. On the first verse, he has the lines, "And I ain't got beef with one gang, just one clown dude who just got rid of his tongue ring. Put us in a room alone, give us room alone, he knows better. He'd never step in a room alone. When it's all done, I'd be leaving the room alone. Sad part is, they wouldn't even know you was gone." Joe hit G-Unit with yet another diss track, this one titled Heartbeatology, which is a callback to him calling G-Unit the 5 heartbeats on the Game Over track. He starts off his verse dissing 50 with the lines, "Rap's too commercial, just like commercials advertising shit, lying on the product. They say he's alright, but man, I don't see. You'll always be an Onyx hype man for me." Which is a reference to 50's first big appearance being on the Onyx single React from their third album, Shut 'Em Down, released in 1998. He then disses 50 for having help from Dre, Eminem, and Nate Dogg on his music, and claims 50 lied about how many times he was shot with the lines, "Kick one line where real nigga praise you without M, Dre, or Nate coming to save you. Got shot twice, paper said 9. Guess Jada missed a few lines, like why 50 lied to us, oh probably to sell, and why he leave his main man Muttley in jail. And y'all give him love, but 9 minus 2 is 7, I reckon we missing some slugs." The Jada mention is a reference to his hit single Why, and the Muttley mention is a reference to the character Muttley, who was a sidekick to the villain Dick Dastardly from the animation studio Hanna-Barbera. Joe then goes in on the second verse to send a shot at Game for appearing on Change of Heart by stating that he's probably going to wind up on Blind Date next. Then in 2006, Joe released Mood Music 2, Can It Get Any Worse?, which features the track Dumb Out, a track where he raps for over 7 minutes about a bunch of things, and of course, one of those was taking another shot at Lloyd Banks. In the second verse, he has the lines, "I probably fool cats cause I don't ride out in some big car in the streets, like I ain't some big star and these young motherfuckers is about to fuck up, like leaving their whole career in some bitch car. No name, but just no sublime, nigga, you know who you are. Or end it before it goes too far. Your bud is still fucked. You a liar, money, I'm still spending pump it up, fire money." The career in the car is a reference to the story about Lloyd Banks losing the CD of his upcoming second album, The Big Withdrawal. Some woman got a hold of the CD and the album leaked, which led Banks to scrap it and then release The Rotten Apple instead in October 2006. Fast forward to 2008 and the beef between Joe Budden and Game was officially squashed. In 2008, Joe had an interview on Vlad TV and was asked about his beef with the Game. He explained how the beef started over the line from the Cross Country Connection song, and that Game was the one that reached out to him to squash things.
Me, Game, and Stack Bundles did a joint on Clues Tape. Cross Country Connection. I don't remember the name of it. And it was really Game and Stack, and Clue just kind of spliced me on there. So I got on there, and I stand by this today. I had no intention of causing any drama on that track. I mean, we eventually met up and decided it'd be best for both of us to just dead it. But yeah, that's why I say it wasn't really the beef was over at that point. We just may not have been fucking with each other. I never had I didn't carry that beef on after that. Unless I was asked about it, I would say something about it, and vice versa on his part. So yeah, that was it. That was the beef.
They talked things out, and Joe kind of hinted that something might be in the works with them together.
Felt real good.
Y'all talk about doing songs together?
We talk. We talk. Me and him actually are similar in a lot of ways. How, I won't say, but we are. We talk. I mean, if I tell you everything that we talked about, it'll probably spoil anything that will ever happen. Right? I don't want to give it away. It'll be dope when it happens.
That wound up coming to fruition when Joe released his fourth album, Padded Room, in February 2009. On the album is the track The Future, featuring The Game. It's not a bad track, it's a song about women, not really what I would expect from a Joe Budden and Game collaboration. So yeah, the beef between Joe and Game was officially squashed. The situation between Joe and G-Unit, however, was still not resolved despite things being a bit calmed down publicly. Lloyd Banks and Joe Budden wound up collaborating on the track Remember the Titans, also featuring Fabulous and Royce the 5'9" from Joe's mixtape Mood Music 4, A Turn for the Worst, released in October 2010. Then again, they had a song together on Lloyd Banks' mixtape All or Nothing Volume 2, Live It Up, released in September 2016 on the track Transitions. To me, it's one of the best tracks on the mixtape, and it seems quite fitting that Joe ends his verse with the lines, "Some think too small, they can't vision it, don't even bother hitting my line, I'm transitioning." As after this was released, he released his album Rage in the Machine and retired from rap. So clearly by this point, the beef between Joe and Banks was squashed too. Joe and 50 still had slight tension at least, but they didn't have anything else really to say on wax about one another, as like Joe said, 50 was sending G-Unit to diss him. Sometime in 2009, however, after Joe Budden and Tahiri had broken up, she was spotted with 50 Cent on multiple occasions. Knowing 50, that was possibly his way of being petty and getting back at Joe for the diss tracks aimed at him and G-Unit, as this is similar to what he did during his beef with Rick Ross around this time as well. After all of this, 50 and Joe did still have some things to say about one another in the media. For example, in September 2017, on Everyday Struggle, they posed the question of which rapper had the best run. Joe's answer was 50 Cent, largely due to all the obstacles he faced early in his career, like having beef with street guys, as well as having to deal with being blackballed from the music industry.
50 Cent had the greatest run that I've ever seen in my entire life, and that will probably remain the same. That answer will never change for me. I'm very aware of all the people that 50 Cent had beef with. He shouldn't have beat any of it. They should have killed him. They tried to kill 50 Cent for years. He should have died. He did not. He then had to deal with real live street beef with being blackballed. He shouldn't have beat that.
In December 2017, Eminem released the album Revival. Joe, as he tends to do, gave his opinion of the album, which wasn't too favorable. This caused Eminem to take shots at Joe, and also Bizarre from D12 released the diss track Love Taps, aimed at Joe Budden and Jay Electronica. 50 Cent also chimed in with a post on Instagram aimed at Joe Budden, captioned with, "That was a bad idea. Look, you got a little ass whooping coming. It's not a big deal, you will get over it." Then in April 2020, Lloyd Banks called into the Joe Budden podcast. Once again, they seemed to be on friendly terms. Then again in July 2022, Banks made an appearance on the podcast, this time in person. So like I said, Joe and Banks had certainly squashed their beef if nothing else. The beef between Joe and the unit was pretty much over with. Joe, being focused on his podcast, has had his comments about things going on in music as usual, and there were things said back and forth, like the whole 50 defending Eminem thing, but it wasn't anything like it was back in 2004 when diss tracks were going back and forth between them. Once again, another beef involving Joe Budden. I've covered his beef with Saigon as well as his beef with Drake, so check those out as well. Same with 50, as I've covered his beef with several other rappers as well, like Ja Rule for example. As I said at the beginning, these two are no strangers to rap beef. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on the beef. Click the thumbs up button to like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Join the Discord server to come talk with myself and others. And of course, consider becoming a patron or a YouTube channel member to help support the channel further.